Hi friends, welcome to day number 2 of the KickstART 5-day challenge. I hope that you are doing super good, super well, and I hope that you had a good time painting yesterday. If you're joining right now, oh boy, I've got to do something here. I've done that before where I had a YouTube link open and it was playing at the same time as I was talking, and because it was my live stream and I didn't know what was going on, and it really threw me off, and we had to shut the whole thing down. It was terrible. You might have been there if you've been with us for a while, but anyways, I'm super excited. I want to take a look, because I actually pulled up the group right now because I want to just go in and take a look at a couple paintings and stuff like that. But if you're new here with us right now today, I'm going to get the chat going so I can see where people are coming in from. Okay, super good. Karen, Suzanne, Sharon, Becca, Faith, good morning. It's super fun to have you with me this morning. I'm here in the studio and I'm basically on my own. Like, Peter's not here with me, Renee's not in here right now, so you can blame everything on me. But it's actually like, sometimes I find that I like to have this time where nobody can filter. Like, I don't have to have all the filters up for what I say. I can just like say whatever I think and whatever comes to my mind, right? So it's kind of fun. Anyways, I'm gonna switch views real quick, and I'm gonna look down at my canvas. I'll show you my painting from yesterday, and you can see. Oh, here we go. That's what I meant to do. My painting from yesterday, which I worked on a little bit after we were done with the live thing, and I really had fun with this. This was a lot of fun painting the flowers and kind of getting a blurred effect in it. And then this is another painting that I did yesterday. And what I started out doing with this was I started like really thinking about analogous colors, and I was thinking about red and like just staying within red, orange, you know, like maybe red, violet, maybe like in that range. I never I didn't stick with it. As I kept going, I was like, you know what, I kind of want to break out a little bit more. But that was kind of what it started with, and it was kind of fun. Still kind of working on that a little bit. And today I'm going to start with a blank canvas, and I'm going to do a quick toning of it as we're starting. So if you're new, you may not know this, but I basically use pretty simple colors. This is cadmium yellow medium. I actually threw out yesterday when I was painting a little bit of cadmium orange, but I don't normally have it out. This is naphthol red, very similar to cadmium red, but I'm probably going to use that today for the image that I'm painting. Ultramarine blue. I have a little phthalo blue here, but I probably won't use it at all today. White and black. And my brushes are all going to be these flats. And but here, let me just see if I can bring you over. And I just wanted to take a look here at some paintings from yesterday. So I thought it was really cool to see. I just love these challenges for this reason. You know, see Kalia's painting, Maddie, Jamie. Really cool, fun, colorful, you know, Ismat, Vera. Look at these. I mean, you guys are in there. I think you're seeing them too, but super cool, right? Joanne. And everybody, you know, like I know that some people painted along with me, and so there's some of the ones that I did, you know, or the painting from yesterday, but so many people did their own, and it's really fun to see all the variety. So super great. If you want to be involved and you haven't yet done this, you can always head over to acrylicuniversity.com, click on this KickstART button right here, and it'll take you to this sign up registration page. Like, it's too late probably to do it on the same schedule with us, but even if you started late, you could still follow through with the 5-day challenge And this is an easy way to do it. And then you can get involved in this group right here where all this fun stuff is happening. Now, why would I do this? Well, you know, I'll be honest. The reason that we do this is really so that more people can come in contact with Acrylic University, with me, with what we do, because we believe in what we do and we love to see people thrive creatively. So there's really two reasons. One, to encourage you creatively, to get you painting. I mean, I saw a post from somebody yesterday who said, this is like the first time I painted in 20 years. Whoa, that's awesome. Like, I know that there's a lot of people out there who want to paint and who love painting, but they may have fallen into a pattern like that, where it's like, I love this. This is part of who I am. This is part of what I love doing. But man, life just happened. And all of a sudden I look back and 20 years has gone by and I haven't really lifted a paintbrush up in 20 years. So if we can be part of encouraging people in that, that's amazing. And if we'd love to, you know, have you be part of Acrylic University, if this is something that you love, then we have lots and lots of stuff for you to do. So without further ado, though, I want to just get into the painting. And I'll show you here. We've got this scene. I didn't really give you a big picture of it, but if you're in the group, you can go and you can see, but here is a bigger picture of it. Get rid of that. And yeah, I'm excited to paint this. This was actually from our trip like 2 weeks ago. I was on this little river. It was in Arizona, north of Sedona, just a little bit. And it was a beautiful day. It was like, I don't know, it was just incredible. The trees in some places were just starting to get their buds. And I'm assuming like in about a week, it would have been very full of green leaves everywhere. We were right on the cusp of that. Like down in Sedona, the leaves already had come on. But I think we were up just a little bit higher. It was probably just slightly colder. And so they hadn't come on yet. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on a glaze. Now, I think what I'm going to do, I'm just making this decision right now, but I'm going to use this. This is transparent red iron oxide. And I'm going to do a thin glaze of this over the entire painting just to get started. And why I'm using this is it's a nice warm color. It's you know, it's a transparent color. Will be fairly thin and it will go down and it will it'll dry and you'll still be able to see the light white kind of like shining through. So it's not going to cover everything and make it dark. Although this color actually can get pretty dark if you put it on thicker. But what I like to do sometimes is paint kind of like wet into wet. So while this is still drying, I'm going to start coming back in and I'm going to start drawing in and putting in things. Like there's quite a few different ways that you can approach a painting, right? And I always find, I think I talked about this yesterday a little bit, but if you can vary what you do and change things up a little bit, like you can actually create quite different feels in a painting, same subject matter, different feels completely. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to be blocking it in a little bit more, like not drawing quite as precise. This scene doesn't necessarily have tons and tons of detailed things, but you still could spend a fair amount of time doing drawing. And a way to do it sometimes is, oh, I got to look back here. I just see Terry. This is fascinating. Yeah, it is Oak Creek. Oh, that's right. You're right. It is Oak Creek. I was like, I didn't have. I love it. I love it. You guys are so smart. It is Oak Creek. And yeah, I totally forgot the name of it, and somebody already mentioned it to me. I think it was when I was there. I was telling somebody where we had been, and they were like, "Oh, you mean Oak Creek or Oak Canyon or something like that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think that's it." And then of course I forgot again when we started. When I was getting ready to do this, I totally spaced it. But you're right. I do think it's Oak Creek. And just a beautiful, beautiful drive down, because we were up in Flagstaff and drove down. And but my point about what I'm doing is we could take time to draw everything in, or you can do what I'm doing, and which is kind of more big picture. It's getting the main colors and values in, and we'll come back later as we go, and we'll do some of the drawing. Like we'll refine these later, but mixing it up like this is a good way to just like approach a painting a little bit different. And for me, it's always fun because like I kind of get stuck in ruts just like anybody. I'll kind of like do something, I'll like it, and then I'll do it again, and it's great. It's fun to find a way to paint and enjoy it and keep working within that. But it's also really fun sometimes to break into new ways of operating or remember old ways that you haven't used in a long time. So that's kind of what this is for me. In fact, I would say that this is probably one of the least common ways that I paint, would be to approach it like this. So if you think it looks like something I do all the time, maybe you have an insight into how I paint that I don't, but I don't set out to do this that frequently. So as the scene goes back, even though it's a really warm kind of scene and atmosphere, and that's what I really liked about this, is just there's so much warmth, and the colors are so different really than what I have here in the Northwest. And I like that a lot. But even there, you can see as the distance, as the canyon walls in the background, they turn so blue. And yet you can tell that there's still kind of a reddish nature to them. So I think that that's what's fun, is seeing how all this stuff, it gets affected. It's affected in the same way, but it looks a little different, right? Like atmosphere always makes things lighter, and it always makes things a little bit less yellow and red. But you don't totally take out the yellow and the red of the object, right? That looks different. The red walls back there still look different than if they were fir trees from the Northwest. So I think that kind of stuff is really interesting and kind of fun. Okay, let me see something here. Okay, Lisa, nice to have you. Pam, Sarah, super, super fun. Yeah, how many of you have been to this area and seen it? It was Renee and Willow came with me this time, and it was their first time there. I'd been there once before, a couple years ago, but it was their first time. And it was fun to be able to act like I knew where I was going, show them around, right? That's what you do. That's what they say guys do, right? A lot is like we never want to ask for directions. That's the stereotype, right? Like we always want to act like we know where we are and where we're going and things like that. It's pretty true. I have to say it's pretty accurate in my account. I think I've gotten a little more humble over the years, and I'm a little like more inclined to ask for help than I used to be. But that is a general thing that I still struggle with. Renee, I remember she's always been pretty free to ask for help. Oh, thanks, Rena. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a fun place. Becca, Terry, you guys have been there. Looks like I enjoy it. The one thing that I was sad that we weren't able to do that I would love to do at some point if we go back, I definitely want to do it. And I wanted to do it this time. I feel like we were slightly late in figuring it out, but it would be to take those pink Jeep tours, because we were on our way down to Sedona on Monday, and oh wait, no, I'm thinking actually that was on Monday. Is that right? I can't remember. No, that's right. It was Sunday on the way up to the Grand Canyon. We stopped at another place, and I ended up talking to somebody, and this woman was saying that she recommended if we were going to Sedona the next day that we would do the pink Jeep tours. So we were on our way to the Grand Canyon. We didn't do anything that day really. That night we were kind of like thinking about it, looking at it, and thinking, oh, that'd be cool. Let's look in that. She said try to reserve it, early, and it just felt like we were just a little bit late. Like the ones that we were most interested in were, by that time, they were already booked. And so we ended up not doing it. It's the long and the short of it. But that would be, I think, the only thing that I kind of look back and think, man, I wish we would have done that. Because then, of course, not only are there the pink Jeep tours, but there's all the off-road little dune buggy things that they have going on. And we were pulling in and we were going for a hike. And the hike we went on was really cool. And there was nothing disappointing about it. But when we were driving to the hike, we kept passing all these. It felt like there'd be like a dad driving the dune buggy thing, and he'd have like his family in the back, or sitting there. And I just kept thinking, oh man, that's what I want to do right there. I want to drive one of those things. So I do think that would be super fun. I just have no idea where you go or anything like that. But I suppose it looked to me like there were enough people driving around that you could just follow somebody and go where they go. So I kind of have most of this kind of scratched on there. And you can see the reflection in the water is not really blue, even though, so this is why observation is so important, right? Because like over here, this water is not blue at all. Like in the middle, there's a little bit of blue because it's where it's getting reflected, but it's not very blue on the outer edges. So use your eyes and always be critical of the presuppositions that you bring to painting, because no matter who you are, you probably have some things that are lodged in your brain about the way things look. And if you ever, I didn't really think about this too much. I'm trying to think, the first person that probably shared this kind of idea with me was Carolyn Anderson. and it was in a workshop a few years ago, and she was talking about our eyes and like all this kind of stuff that we see or think we see, and I thought it was really fascinating because she was just saying, just introduced this idea. And then I read further about it in Betty Edwards' book on color, and she had some fascinating studies that they had done with students where they would show them, the one experiment that I thought was the most interesting and the one that stands out to me was they took eggs. So like we just had Easter, imagine Easter eggs, but not colored. They were all, white eggs, and they had all these other foam objects as well. So, and they were all white, like all the objects were white in their original, color. If you just saw them, you would know, okay, that's a white object. And they placed all of them underneath a light that was red. Okay, I see. Aomi, I'm just listening to, I see what you're saying. Is it possible to download the pictures you were working with for the KickstART event? So if you go into, Aomi, if you go into the painting challenge group, it's the For the Love of Acrylics challenge group, and you should be able to get in there pretty easily. I don't know for sure if you've gone in there before or not, but yes, they are in. I made a post. If you click on announcements, I made a post and I put in the image. It's probably hidden now behind this one because I asked Renee if she could make this live video, the announcement. So that's probably going to be the first announcement you see. But if you click on the little tab that says announcements, I did put the reference photo right there. And I'll try to do a better job of getting them out. The thing is, I'm looking back at what people asked for me to paint, and I'm trying to like pick photos that correlate with what people were hoping to get. So I just picked this yesterday is what I'm saying. So, but hi, Sunny. Nice to have you. Oh, or maybe that's, I thought, that's funny. I thought you said this is, maybe your name is Sunny, but I'm looking at like, maybe you said this is a sunny morning. Anyways, I was talking about Betty Edwards and her experiment with color and the way that people perceive things. And basically what they did is they took this experiment and they had these different objects that were all white. They put them under a red light. So, and they had these students do little studies of them, like, okay, paint this, and in all the cases, basically like 90% of the cases, what happened was there would be a styrofoam object. So imagine, just imagine for a minute, like this was underneath the red light. And people would paint this, and because it was under the red light, they would paint it red. And there's like a little still life thing set up where all these objects were, but there was one egg in the middle of it. And the egg was just as pink, just as red because of the red light as everything else. But because people perceived it was an egg, and they like in their heads, they're like, oh, eggs are white. Like 90% of the students painted the egg white, not red, not what they were looking at, not what they were seeing, but what their brain was telling them an egg is. And I just think that that's fascinating. Like, so that's why, when we're looking at this kind of stuff and we're going like, okay, what color am I going to paint the water? You can tell a lot of times the difference between somebody who's been painting a long time and has really like studied and like really tried hard to observe the difference is that you get all these, colors that are different than the person who is starting, but they haven't yet learned how to observe colors. And so what they do is they do what their teacher in elementary school told them, the sky is blue, grass is green, everything like that. And, there's nothing wrong with that, except that if you're trying to paint a scene and you're trying to convey the feeling of the light, you're not going to be able to do that without really, really careful observation. So, oh, that's a good idea. Take a picture of the photo and print it out. Yeah, I'll really will try to do that. I'm just thinking I wish I had like a little bit better place to. I need to be thoughtful. Like if I make it an announcement, but then there's another announcement in the group, it disappears. So I need to think about where I could put them so that they're all visible. But it's really fun to have you guys. And I hope that you enjoyed painting yesterday. And again, if you're painting along with me, that's really fun. I never really know exactly how many people are painting, but I know that there were quite a few because I saw quite a few either on Facebook. I even saw some on Instagram. And well, I tend to speak before I should. I'm trying to weigh whether or not I'm planning to give something away today, but I need to figure out how to do it. I need to figure out how to go back. We're putting out a little survey, a form thing that we can get select some people from, but that won't be ready until tomorrow. And I want to do one today. So I might leave it up to our daughter, Willow. She can figure stuff out. She's pretty smart. Okay, good, Naomi. Yeah, let me know if, oh, that's fun. You're painting roses. I like that. It is in the Facebook For the Love of, oh yeah, in Facebook. It's in Facebook. Yeah. Sorry if I wasn't clear on that. For the Love of Acrylics Painting Challenge group on Facebook. I guess I could show you if you want. I can take you there. Basically, if you go to the challenge group and you click on announcements right here. Oh, well, actually this is it, but I think that this changed. So if I go like this, I think Renee made it so that, yeah, see, I'm live on there. So you have to click on announcements and then it should be the second one down. There it is. So that easy. Should be able to find it, and it's downloadable. I'm pretty sure you can just right click on it and be able to pull that down into your computer. Yeah, I'm going next week to Indiana Indiana is where I used to live. It's not as beautiful, I would say, geographically as where I live now in Washington. But the really fun thing about Indiana that I miss quite a bit is there were so many plein air outdoor painting events, and they were really fun. And my favorite one of all is called First Brush of Spring. And that's what I'm going for. I'm meeting a friend. We're gonna stay in there's this place called the Barn Abbey. It's a really cool town in like western Indiana, and tiny little town. Everybody rides around in golf carts, and it's just like this really quaint place that if you've ever been there, you know what I'm talking about. If you've never been there, you just have to imagine it, and you might not have ever been to a place like it, because I never had. I mean, it feels like a very unique kind of place, and it's perfect for painting because, you know, if you're trying to paint outside and you're wanting to be safe in the sense of not get hit by a car, sometimes, like where I live, man, there's cool places to paint, but sometimes it's hard to find a place that's not next to a road, right? Or, you know, that kind of thing. Where there, what's really cool is even if you're on a street, the chances are that most of the traffic is going to be, like I said, from a golf cart or something like that. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure that one year I took a workshop and we were standing in the street, just looking down the street, like our whole class, like 12 of us or whatever. We're all just standing in the street because the teacher had set up and he was painting the scene from the street. So that's like pretty amazing and really fun. And I'm so excited to go there and hang out and just see people, see old friends, you know, that kind of thing. And then I'm taking a workshop. So Monday, I leave on Monday. I get there Monday night. I'm actually going to get there really late. My flight got changed. One of the bummers was that my flight got changed. So I'm going to be getting there Monday night at like, I don't know. Because I fly into St. Louis and I'll get my rental car, but I don't get there till like 8. Then I have about a 3-hour drive from there. So I'll probably get into town pretty late. And I don't think I have a place to stay that night because I think that my rental starts the next day. So I'll probably be sleeping in my car that night. But that's the adventure, right? But I'm looking forward to it. My workshop starts the next day on Tuesday with a guy named Wyatt Legrand. He's a really great painter. And he's a pretty fun guy. Like I don't know him super well, but I've painted with him before a couple times. He paints super fast. He paints a ton. Like he is probably in a weekend like that, he'll actually paint. Well, in past weekends, he's painted 17 or 18 paintings in like, that's like 2.5 days or something like that. Like he just paints. He goes to a place. He told me he never finds a place to paint unless he can look around and see that he can paint 3 or at least 3 paintings from that same location. Because then it's like worth the time for him to stop there. So yeah, he just like gets into what he called, I think one time he's like, I could just basically get like ADD painting mode, and so he just goes crazy. But he's a really good painter and he's a good teacher. I've never taken a class from him, but I've heard good things about it. So I'm excited about that. And then at the end of the class, which goes Tuesday and Wednesday, that's when the actual competition starts. So I'm going to be there for 3, I'm thinking how many days of the competition. I guess it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then the awards happen on Saturday. So it's 2 full days and kind of like 2 parts of days. So maybe it's 3 days total, because it's Saturday morning. You could still be painting if you have the energy, and you can paint Wednesday night. Anyways, that's going to be so fun. I'm really, really, really excited to go. And in this painting, I'm really just looking, I mean, I'm doing what I always do, and that's just, I'm really trying to pay attention to the values of what I'm looking at, and I'm trying to think about the subtle shifts in color, you know, as like these rocks, for instance. I mean, there's reflected light bouncing up. The rocks kind of change color. Those rocks are, I don't know what they're made out of, but they're like, the bottom of them might be kind of red and the top might be more gray. They're very interesting because it's like there's these, I don't know enough about geology to be able to talk about rocks, but all I know is that they're interesting. And okay, cool. Oh, it's snowing in Juneau, but you're painting spring flowers. I like that. You live close to New Harmony. Oh, that's cool, Karen. Yeah, New Harmony is so cool. Isn't that I don't know, it's just like this unique little place. That's the name of the town there. And it's got quite an interesting history too. Like all these different, I don't know, different things that have gone on there, and different groups that have tried to, the reason it's called New Harmony, I think, is because people tried to make it a utopia, and, you know, all this interesting stuff that's there. And there's a woman who was a oil baroness, I guess you would say. She had inherited all this money from oil and from her family, and she fell in love with New Harmony somehow, and she like donated tons and tons of money. So there's lots of interesting stuff there that you would never really find in a normal town of that size. But it's because this woman liked the area so much, and so it's really quite interesting. The name of this canyon is Oak Canyon. That's what everybody else here told me earlier. Yeah, there is I'm trying to think. I think actually if you look closely up at that the hill in the background, you can see a tiny little bit of snow up there. And the time that I was there a couple years ago, there was more snow than there is now, or when we were there a couple weeks ago. So yeah, it is pretty with the snow, but I was actually kind of glad that there wasn't as much snow this time, because I had that kind of awful experience at the Grand Canyon last time where I didn't know it was going to be so cold, and we were up there, and all of a sudden, I mean, I told people this even just this last time, because it can get so cold up there. I mean, no joke. I've lived in cold places, and I've visited Edmonton, Alberta when it was 40 below, and I swear I was colder at the Grand Canyon than I was anywhere else I've ever been. And I know it wasn't because it was colder. It was just because I wasn't ready for it. But that's the whole thing. I mean, I was not ready for it. I'm thinking Arizona, I'm thinking warm, and I go there and I just froze. So I was kind of glad that it wasn't quite that bad. But this time we were way more prepared too. And I wasn't holding all my camera gear all the time. And I avoided going in the morning. I told Renee and Willow, I said, like, let's just go later in the day. There's no reason to get there in the morning. The morning's going to be really cold anyways. So let's just go and be there for the afternoon, and we can catch a sunset rather than a sunrise. So, but it is really interesting. I mean, there was tons and tons of snow at the Grand Canyon the last time we were there. This time there was still snow, not quite as much again, but you know, I guess we just caught a little bit different year, and it was slightly warmer. But it's pretty interesting to see the snow. Like the way down from Flagstaff feels to me kind of like Eastern Washington or Eastern Oregon or maybe Montana or a place like that, where it's like it's dry and there's more pine trees. Like, but the difference, I mean, you go from like Phoenix area, which is like desert and, you know, pretty flat, except for the mountains that come up. And then you go up, and Sedona is quite different, right? It's like, feels to me like it's, I guess it's kind of flat on the, you know, in like the flat areas, but it feels like there's more rolling hills and stuff to me than, I don't know. I might be just remembering not that accurately what's there, but like the difference is pretty dramatic in terms of, you know, there's like all these, you know, the cacti everywhere. You like how I said cacti and not cactuses? That's how smart I am. Our niece was with us, and she was saying cacti, and I mean, it was great. It was funny. I just, like, she's very, what would you say? She was saying all these words right. Oh, here's the other one that she was saying different, and she's corrected us on, is, you know, the Vietnamese noodles. Do you know how you say it? Because like for 20 years of my life, I called it pho noodles, and she says, nope, it's pho, or something like that. I'm probably still not saying it right, but it's like, so I was kind of like, well, you know what? I think I'm just going to keep saying pho, because when I say pho, it makes me think of the cuss word, and it's like, it makes me, you know, like I don't want people to be thinking that I'm on the verge of cussing every time I talk about a certain kind of food. So, you know, but she's that person that was correcting me on different things. Not really correcting me, but, you know, she would make a point of saying it the right way and by default correcting me. It's fun to have young people around who are smart, and man, we've got the most amazing nieces and nephews. And it's really cool when you have stuff that you can kind of work together on and stuff. So that niece in particular, she's been helping me with different things related to some of the stuff that I do with art. And I have another niece that I'm meeting with today who I'm seeing if she would be interested in helping do something, because they're like so amazing. They're really gifted. And sometimes, you know, it's not an easy time to be a graduate of college. The niece I'm meeting with today, she graduated from college, and she's super smart, super gifted, like I was saying. But it's just not super straightforward in what to do after school, or how to make use of your degree or that kind of thing. And so I'm kind of looking at it like, oh, if we can figure out something that would work for both of us. That'd be kind of cool. So there's still a ton of orange kind of floating around on my canvas, right? Like, hi, Carolyn from Marietta, Georgia. Oh, good. Becca says I was right. Yeah, the drive from Flagstaff, I agree, Sarah. I mean, to Sedona, that's so cool. Like, this is exactly where this is, right? We just had pulled off at one of the places. And generic, I'm sorry. I think I put this on there yesterday, but there's a, I need to put it out there again, but there's a link I can give you that you can get your name onto the boy, I'm sorry if I start talking and then I stop. It's because I start reading. I can't do two things at one time. If you want your name to show up on what I'm looking at, you have to go to restream.io/chat, and that will allow me to see who you are from Facebook, because somebody wrote something and I was gonna comment and then I realized I couldn't see who your name was, but you said like you're coming in from somewhere. And anyways, I apologize if you write and I don't say something. I am painting at the same time for one thing, but I'm trying to look up every once in a while. And do you feel you're painting from the mid values out on this as opposed to your normal approach of dark to light? Well, you know, I did put in these dark values pretty early on, but there's a lot of this that is, you know, maybe, I mean, if I squint, I actually still see a lot of darker values. But I kind of want to push some of it a little bit lighter, I think. And yeah, there's quite a few areas that are mid-tone. And because I mean, obviously, like if you paint from a black canvas, there's no other way to paint really. Like you're going to be painting from dark to light. Unless you paint over everything with light and then start over. But yeah, because I've got so much like the mid-tone orange background coming through, it's feels like I'm basically painting the mid-tones, or from there, I guess you could say, and just kind of trying to go down. And I'm also just trying to mute some of the places where we've got these like bright colors that it's kind of cool. Like I like painting on a color like orange sometimes, but it's also can be kind of confusing if you're not careful, because you know it's a very strong color and it will come out all over and it can make it feel like, you know, just a little bit like chaotic and your eye doesn't know where to look. Okay, the link is, okay, here I'll take just a second here and I'll type it into the chat. I think that that's the oh wait, no, I'm sorry, that's not it. Just a second, that's not it. I don't, yesterday it had a, oh, this is what I think it is. I think it's actually that. I don't know if neither of those are correct. I might not be able to get it for you because I have a bad memory right now, and I apologize. So let's talk about What do you guys want me to paint tomorrow? I know I've asked, like, I had some people, suggest, like, I was looking back and it was funny because it was like almost even for what you guys said. Like, I would go through and it's not easy to get the actual number because I would have to, I could do it. I just haven't done it. But it felt to me as I scrolled through, I'm like, man, people basically were split on this. And I would feel bad if I didn't like do one of everything. Like, the only one that I'm not 100% sure on is people. Like, I don't know if people actually meant they want me to paint a portrait or if they meant just like add people to a painting. So I'd be happy to do either, but I don't know what people meant. Something urban, an alleyway. No, it shows an air. Oh, okay, shoot. How to mix a variety of greens. Oh, sure. So we've got 3 days. I love watching. It looks chaotic with a dab here and there. Yeah. Oh, it is chaotic. You should just think about what's going on in my mind this whole time. It's utter chaos. No, you know what I think is interesting, and I've found this over time, is that the longer I've painted, the more relaxed I am most of the time in the painting process. And I really feel like that's part of where I think the difference can be between somebody who's starting out and somebody who's been painting for a while. Is I honestly don't think there's that much of a difference in, like, there is very little difference, if any difference in actual physical ability. Like, I don't think that's the deal at all. I think all it is the experience of knowing you've been down this road before, and the experience of knowing this is what happens when I do this, right? It's like, I know what's going to happen pretty much when I mix colors. Like, if I know that that's too dark, I add white. Oh, it's too this, I add, maybe I need to add some orange to make it more brown, right? It's too violet. Oh, I need to add some yellow, like, these are things, but it's, I feel like there's the analogy that I've used before, so I apologize if you've heard me say it like this before, many times maybe, but it's like, if you go to a new city and you're driving around or walking around and you're trying to find your way to somewhere, like, you don't know where you are, you don't know where you have like hardly any reference point, right? Just imagine if you didn't have your cell phone and a GPS, right? You're just like trying to figure out anything. But if you've been there for a week, like for us, when we were in Scottsdale, the first day, I'm like, okay, I've been here before and I recognize that one street, but this is a new area of town and I don't really know where I am. So I had to learn this, the streets that were around our resort. Okay. After a week, I felt like I pretty much knew where I was, but when I got picked up by the Lyft driver and he was driving around, he felt way more comfortable, like he knew where things were. Actually, I shouldn't speak about him because he came from the other side of the city and he really didn't know where he was going. He missed like 3 turns, and I'm looking at his GPS because we were talking. Of course, it was probably my fault because I was distracting him, but he missed a turn, and I'm like, okay, he missed 1 turn. He's like, oops, missed that one. And then he missed another one. And I was like, I better stop trying to talk to him because I'm enjoying this conversation, but I also want to get to the airport and pick up the rental car that we had missed the first day. It was pretty funny. So, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you could, if you had a taxi driver that really knew where they're going. Like they know it they know everything they know the shortcuts, they know everything. And it's the same thing with art. It's just like the more time that you put in, the more, opportunities you have to mix colors and mix greens and do all that. Like, you'll get so used to it that things that seemed like they were more challenging before become second nature. And that's why I can talk and paint at the same time. It's not because I'm a great painter. It's because I've been down this road before, and it's like my mind can kind of operate on autopilot in some ways. But you remember yesterday when I stopped and I had to think, and I started getting really quiet, right? Because it doesn't matter for me how long I've been painting. Like I can paint for quite a while, and I can, if everything goes perfectly, like maybe I get away with not stopping, not being too, thoughtful about everything, because I'm just kind of working on autopilot. And that's part of what I'm, trying to do is, I'm trying to talk about the process or trying to explain what I'm doing or something like that. But still, it feels like there's almost always a time when I'm like, okay, you know what? I just went out of my comfort zone. I feel like I need to stop. I need to think about this. I need to take a break. I need to like really analyze what's going on here. And I worked on my painting yesterday afterward. Boy, I probably put in I don't even know how long I put in, but it went through like 2 or 3 different variations, like where I was like, yeah, I kind of like this, but then I'd keep working on it, and it's like, because I think, well, I wonder what would happen if I made that softer, would it look better? And I kind of think, yeah, I think it would. I think that would make it better. So I wasn't just mindlessly doing stuff, but when you change one thing, it really does affect the rest of the painting. And it's like, I couldn't just stop. I had to carry it through. And sometimes that process just requires more and more thinking along the way, because you are problem solving the whole time. And so that's what I know, because I this is all in response to the thought that it's like kind of chaotic or it feels chaotic or whatever. And no, Rena, Peter isn't here. I could get him on here probably at some point. There's 2 of us here, and you vote for a beachscape. Oh, that's fun. I'm always curious how you decide what you leave in your composition and what to leave out. Something I've always struggled with. Simplification is like it is kind of tricky. It's kind of tricky. Not like, I don't know, it's weird, isn't it? Because you see paintings and you think like, if you just see the painting, you don't always even know what they left out, right? Because you don't know what they were looking at. You don't have any reference point. But sometimes if you see the reference photo and you see with the painting, you're like, oh my goodness, like, look at what they did with that, right? It's like they totally changed this. They left that out. They simplified this. I was looking at a painting today on Instagram by a guy, and it looked kind of like an area maybe in Arizona, like kind of like red rocks, like kind of, it wasn't like big red rocks. It was more like anyways, they took like these tiny little rocks that were all scattered around, and they made them into larger, bigger shapes. And because you could see like the setting on either side of the painting. And I was thinking they did a really good job of simplifying that, because it was not that attractive of a scene in a way. You know, the way that the rocks were, they were just kind of jumbled. So it wasn't actually that fun to look at or easy to look at. But what they did is they took this jumble of rocks and they created something that, you know, you could look at and it was quite appealing. And it worked with their design too. Like I could tell that they had thought about the angle that was, you know, like the rocks were pointing and the light was hitting it and stuff like that, because it all was basically pushing your eye towards the area of interest, which was further up in the painting. So, you know, when you're simplifying, most of the time, the thing to think about is just your design. And that's why, you know, I didn't do a thumbnail sketch on this, but if I was doing a thumbnail sketch, that would be my reference point for what do I leave in, what do I take out, like what's going to help this scene and what's going to, you know, be unnecessary and maybe even take away from the scene. And sometimes it's through the painting process that you see things a little bit more clearly. Like for me in this today, one of the questions I have is the shape of these rocks the best shape? Like, I don't know, you know, like there's a chance that some of this could be a little bit more interesting or something like that. And I didn't take the time to do a thumbnail sketch or something like that where I could really test that. So I don't really know, but that's why for me in this, I'm going to basically be testing things a little bit. Okay, I'm looking back. I love the red tree painting you worked on yesterday. I'd love to see more of your process for that. Oh, cool. Beach with a big sunlit wave. Golf courses have people. Artists are old school Photoshop. Artists show what the world looks like. Oh, yeah. They're old school Photoshop. Yeah, you're right. I think that's interesting way to think of it. Totally. Like artists, I mean, I really do think that that's part of the job of an artist is to, yeah, simplify, maybe put their own twist on it, right? Like it's like putting a filter on something. And you know, there are some pretty awesome tools out there. Like, you know, if you don't know how to simplify something, you could probably dabble a little bit in like a program, like even just your common editor that's on your computer or your phone, and do things like put a blur over your image and just see like the big shapes and the big things, you know, like what's actually, like I'm looking at mine right now and I'm doing that. I'm squinting at the reference photo, and what I'm realizing is, like, to me, there's a bunch of really, really light stuff right here that it's almost all in this area. And now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, I don't actually really like that. I'm going to simplify that some. I think there's too much right there. At least that's where I'm at right now. I think that this might look better if this was maybe a little bit less. And when you start messing with a painting like this, you have to be okay with, you know, maybe what you're thinking doesn't work. Maybe the idea doesn't make sense, and you're going to have to come back and change it back, or, you know, make more adjustments. But it's one of the reasons I love acrylic paints. Is for me, it's a pretty small, you know, risk. I feel like if it doesn't work, we'll be coming back, and in a, you know, just a little bit of time, this will be totally dry. I'll be able to do whatever I want, you know, change it back. But that's the kind of stuff that I feel like you kind of have to be willing to take risks if you want to grow. Oh man, there's a huge conversation with that, because I feel like one of the things right now in our world is there's actually a fear of risk, any kind of risk. And I think it's actually hurting the world big time. And it's the same thing with art, though. It's like you have to take risks if you want to grow. If you never, get outside of your comfort zone in art, you're going to, you might be able to do things that are interesting and fun, but it's kind of boring. Okay, so here's a real question. How does your approach in discussion teaching during this challenge differ from how you teach in the Acrylic University courses? I'm not actually really teaching right now. I'm sharing little tidbits here and there, but if I'm actually teaching a course, I'm talking. I still share stories every once in a while, but not like this. I'm not really, I don't really look at this like teaching. Your choice of orange in your painting amazes me when your reference picture is all gray, green, and brown. Love the color. Well, I started with that color because I thought it would be kind of interesting to have it come through. But sometimes in the process of painting, I find that if I have a really bright color, I end up just going through and kind of erasing it. Like, I'm still doing that, right? Because I don't want it to compete with things that are going to be my center of interest. And so like this big bright orange thing over there, like, okay, it might be kind of interesting looking right now, but is that where I want people to look? Probably not, right? So I think no matter what you paint on, you have to control where people look. And so it's for me, it's really a constant back and forth of looking at my painting and squinting. And the squinting for me just helps me simplify what I'm looking at and see, is the design working? Like, would a viewer, if you were looking at my painting, would you be drawn into it, for one? And would your eye kind of see the main things that we want to be the main things? Because a lot of times there's just these little distractions that we're unaware of. And it's amazing to me how easy it is for them to happen. Like, you don't have to try, it feels like, to have something really distracting go on in your painting. It's like you have to try really hard to not have distractions in the painting. And I swear that one of the reasons, like, if you ever see me paint on a gray canvas, it's one of the great things I like a lot about gray canvases is that out of everything, I feel like gray, even though it's very boring to start out with, you have way less fear of it distracting at the end. Like, it's not going to leap out at anybody and try to get them to look. It's going to blend in. It's like very nondescript. And yet the nice thing is that you know that it's a perfect mid value. And so if you're trying to go up in value, you just make your paint a little bit lighter. If you want to go down into the darks, you make it a little bit darker. And that's easy. That's like super awesome. So orange is fun, but it can be more like covering it up in the end. That's what I'm getting around to say. Yeah, I was showing you guys the book yesterday. That was pretty cool. That was can't post messages to some channels. That's interesting. Yeah, so we are at an hour and 10 minutes already into this. So I'm going to go for a few more minutes, probably 5 more minutes, and then we'll be done. Let you guys go and do your thing. And I'll probably carry on with this again like I did yesterday. But I would like to say one more time that I was super encouraged and excited to see everybody's posting in the Facebook group. It was super fun to see your work. So continue to post in there. And we're going to I'm trying to think, what are we doing? We want to have kind of like a celebration for this at the end and be able to highlight people's paintings. I'm trying to remember what we had decided. Again, this is where my bad memory is not helpful. If Renee was in here, she'd probably remember. I feel like these branches that come off the side are really interesting too, and they add kind of like a fun element. And this bit of land down here, it kind of disappears back here. It's so dark, you don't really see that anymore. And I think that that's helpful to the composition. You know, my teacher, Robert Genn, back in the day, he said something like, when you end your painting, don't go out with a fizzle, but go out with a bang. Like, don't just dabble, do little tiny things and, you know, be afraid, you know, the last part of your painting. Like, if you're going to do something meaningful, do something worthwhile. And that doesn't mean that every brushstroke at the end of a painting has to be really big. I don't think that that's what he means. But I do think that what he means is, don't just sit around and be afraid. You know, like, you know, sometimes we get to a point in our painting and it feels like we don't even want to, like, we're afraid we're going to mess something up, quote unquote. And I feel like, you know, that's going to keep you from making any kind of good choices at the end, because yeah, you might not want to make super, super big brush marks, but if you're just afraid, what you tend to do is, like in sports or in other areas of life, like, you know, you see people at the free throw line in a basketball game, and the more afraid somebody is, you know, the more chance they're gonna do something, they're gonna, like, their nerves are gonna get the best of them, and they're not gonna make their free throw. They're gonna do something, that they didn't want to do. And it's kind of the same thing. I feel like you kind of have to will yourself into a place of courage and say, no matter what, I'm not going to be afraid at this point in the painting. I'm going to do stuff with courage, and I'm going to act. And if it's a mistake, so be it. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to, I'll work on that. I'll fix it. But I'm not going to let fear dominate me and make me, kind of not be the painter that I want to be. Because those last brush marks sometimes are some of the important ones, and you need them to be courageous, or you'll end up thinking that you're making your painting better, but you actually end up making it worse because you're so tentative that you're just kind of like doing something that's not helpful. So I'm trying to model that a little bit right now. Be courageous, be bold. I can hear my daughter, Willow. She's in there listening to one of her audiobooks. She's always got an audiobook these days. And what's funny is that, I think I might have said this before to some of you, but they draw me in. Like, I swear if I wasn't 44 years old, I'd be 9, because I love the stuff that Willow loves. like these little kid mystery, the Alden, what are they? They're the stagecoach children or whatever, boxcar children. That's what it is, boxcar children. I always forget their name. Robert Gann is where you get your limited detail from. Yeah, and from Mike's Fob, and from my own personality, to be honest. But those were my first 2 teachers. And Ovanus Berberian, he's in there too. Basically, I've never studied with somebody who's very detailed. Maybe it would be good for me, because maybe that would help me kind of adapt a different, part of who I am. But my personality is way more geared towards stuff that's not super detailed. I'm, as you know from listening to me, and even like not remembering like what different details about, like, I'm a perfectionist. It's weird because as an artist, I am a perfectionist. Like, and not even just about art stuff. Like, it could be like making food or something like that. Like, I'm a perfectionist, but I'm like kind of detailed in some ways, and I care about details. Like, there's so many things that I'm really particular about, but then in other ways, I'm not a perfectionist. Like, I'm not detail oriented. I'm not good at different elements of that. It's kind of interesting. Now that I think about that, I don't know what like kind of the difference is, some of those things. Okay, guys, this has been super fun. Yeah, the boxcar children, they're amazing, aren't they? They're super fun. Okay, I'm gonna look at the camera and say bye. It was so fun, you guys. Thanks for being here. Remember to post your paintings. Tomorrow, I'm going to have a survey for people to fill out, and we'll link a prize to filling out that survey. But super proud of you guys. It's fun to see your paintings. I hope that you have fun today in Oak Creek, and I'll post this painting when I get it done. And again, yeah, really appreciate you guys. Love you. Have a good day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow, 9 o'clock Pacific, 12 o'clock noon Eastern time. See you then.